All right. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you folks are. Thanks for joining the first of our CTO roundtables. Before I start, I'll just give you a very quick introduction of who we are, what these roundtables are about, and what today's roundtable will be about. I'm Aniket. I'm one of the co-founders of 100ms, which is the company that's organizing this. We build live video APIs for developers who are trying to build custom lifelike experiences inside their websites or apps. A lot of you folks would have already interacted with us, but just to give you some context, we power millions of minutes across, every day across a bunch of use cases. So think of EdTech companies trying to do live classrooms or retail companies trying to do live shopping. We enable a bunch of these use cases. So very quickly, the idea behind these roundtables is over the last couple of years, we've had some fantastic conversations with product and engineering leaders who are trying to figure out how to bottle this massive consumer wave, which is just comfort with live video in general. And this wasn't there before the pandemic, and that spawned a bunch of industries: this edtech, live shopping, virtual events, clubhouse like audio rooms. And product teams and engineering teams are still trying to figure out what the contours of the tech stacks, org design, your choices as you scale from 0 to 1, 1 to 100. And we see leaders constantly trying to figure this out on their own. The idea is to take one vertical at a time, one industry at a time, get some of the best leaders who've pushed us, who've helped us understand our view of the industry, and then try and disseminate that same information to everybody who's trying to go through the same journey. So if you are a co-founder, a CTO, an engineer, a product manager who's trying to figure out their path through building an edtech app and edtech business, I think this will be fantastic. We won't restrict ourselves just to the live piece. We'll be talking sort of the full gamut, org design, async, live, tech stack choices, a bunch of these things. And hopefully all of you should be able to find something that's useful through the conversation. For all of you folks who want to sort of be be engaged and follow through on the future roundtables, do follow us on our Twitter handle, that's at 100ms live, or you can just join our Discord link that's up on our website, 100ms.live. We'll be putting up future roundtables there. All right, let me just very quickly bring over everyone from our panelists very quickly. All right, welcome everyone. Hi Swanand, hi Devesh, hi Chandresh.
Hey.
EdTech's a very super interesting industry to start off with. It's obviously been in the limelight for all the right reasons and some of the wrong reasons very recently. I thought this would be the perfect place to start off with. EdTech specifically has been an overwhelming force of good, in my opinion, over the last, I think, inarguably a force of good over the last 3 to 4 years, getting education to far-flung corners of the globe, making it accessible, making high-quality education accessible to kids, to students who wouldn't have otherwise have had access to this. And you folks, very specifically, Swanand, who's the CTO of CoLearn, Manish, who's the CTO of Classplus, Devesh, CTO of PhysicalsWallah, Chandresh, Senior Engineering Manager at BYJU'S. We've had some of the most deepest conversations with all of you folks. The way you folks have figured out how to navigate, how you see the industry, how you see your orgs, specifically product and engineering orgs, evolving to the requirements of the market, and also to some of the recent challenges that have come up with the pandemic sort of shutting down. Now there's a question about how EdTech combines itself with the offline world and remains relevant within the online context. I think these are very interesting concepts. We've had some run-throughs and we've had some very, very deep conversations. I hope to surface a lot of them together. I just request all of you to just give out very quick intros. Swanand, if you could start off with that, and then we could just follow suit.
Sounds good. Hi everyone, I'm Swanand, currently head of engineering at CoLearn. We're trying to bring the Indonesian students competitive on a global scale. Tough problem, but we're in the middle of solving it. A lot of what Aniket said rings true, and I've mostly been a nerd all my life. There was a point when I was a professional bug writer, and then last few years I've been a professional meeting taker. But hey, I'm not complaining.
Manish, that's one way of describing your CTO role. Hey, I'm a meeting taker, I guess. Manish, if you could just very quickly introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi guys, I'm Manish. I am a part of Classplus, and what we are doing right now at Classplus is to ensure that we empower our content creators and educators so that they can build their own brand. We are kind of a B2B setup, and if you would like to draw parallels, it should be something like Shopify for EdTech, and we enable the brick and mortar kind of coaching centers to become digital shops, completely giving them end-to-end tech solutions, tech products. They can increase their visibility. They can increase their reach. So that's what we are in short.
Thanks, Manish. Manish is also probably the most experienced person on this panel, unless I'm wrong. And Manish has
Uh,
pretty much
that's
seen.
uh, that's that's another way of saying you're quite old amongst the
Manish,
youngsters.
nobody's talking about age. We're just the most experienced one here. Everyone who wants to know war stories from all the top startups in India can just address that to
Yeah,
Manish.
it just happened that I've been with a few uh, unicorns in the past. Spent time with Make My Trip, Paytm, Geo, Dream 11, Zomato. So that have been my journey so far. Uh, you know, a lot of firefighting all this while, but yeah, that actually gives you the ground reality about startups and technology in general. So that's something I really appreciate, being a part of the small community.
Right. Thanks for joining, Manish. It's always a pleasure chatting with you. Chandresh, if you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Sure. So I lead the class experience platform for Group BYJU'S. And what we are trying to solve is your learning journey starting from KG all the way up to I don't know when. Maybe you keep on learning forever, right? And that is exactly what we are trying to solve at BYJU'S. So as a lot of folks here would be concentrating on the B2B model or a online model in a way, what we are trying to do is we are trying to take a hybrid approach towards what we are looking at, more with regards to looking at online learning in synchronous asynchronous manner, as well as physical learning with Akash Byju's and now the Byju learning teaching centers that are coming up across the country. So that is what I lead out here. Previously, I've been a two-time entrepreneur, one successful, one unsuccessful, but that brings in a lot of character with regards to how you look at solving a problem statement and looking at things with ownership. And that is exactly what I do day in and day out at Byju's.
So, welcome, Chandresh. Getting someone from BYJU'S and BYJU'S width and spectrum, and you'll see uh, through the talk today, and it's just astonishing at how much of a 30,000 feet uh, view you have to take when you're organizing, sort of designing for 18 orgs across several verticals. So just super excited to be hearing that. Now we have probably the buzziest startup in the Indian tech ecosystem right now, new kid on the block. Devesh, if you could just introduce yourself, that'd be
Yes. Thank you, Aniket. Thank you. My name is Devesh Mishra, and I'm CTOs PhysicalsWallah. So, PhysicalsWallah is mainly into K-12 domain, and we are mainly targeting need and G aspirants, and help them to provide them, through PhysicalsWallah. We are going ahead with vision to make education more affordable and accessible to anywhere, everywhere. So, and we are recently got into offline vertical also, offline and semi offline vertical also, like as Vidyapit and Parchala, and we have seen very good response from the students. Yeah.
Awesome. Welcome on board, Devesh. We'll chat a lot about your unconventional path, specifically
And
physics.
I like to one more thing here. Like I joined PhysicalsWallah as an intern. I was a very initial member of the tech team of PhysicalsWallah. Yeah. So that's my journey from intern to PhysicalsWallah, from intern to CTO at PhysicalsWallah.
All right. So we have one ex-intern, we have one meeting taker, and one head of all unicorns, apparently, or part of all unicorns in India. They have a very sort of varied guest list. Hopefully, you'll be able to get a glimpse of the entire, like a fairly different set of viewpoints. Just a very quick note on the format and how we are going to do this. We'll try and we have a sort of loose set of questions that we want to attack, and we'll have everybody talk about their viewpoints on these questions. This will have everything from tech stack choices to product features to org design choices. Uh, we will have time for questions, but we do expect this to run fairly long. I mean, we tried and do a run through for this, and we ended up doing this for 2 hours. So I don't know how long this is going to run today. Expect this to run for at least an hour, 15 minutes, maybe hour and a half, and we will try and take questions at the end of this. But even in the middle, if you have questions, just put them on chat. We'll try and make sure that we address some of them as we keep on going along. All right, so. Uh, Before I started getting to the meat of the questions, I'd just love to spend a couple of minutes just talking about one anecdote from each of the companies very specifically, uh, that just sort of reinforces how much of a force of good tech has been. Like in a lot of the recent hullabaloo, we tend to forget uh, all the joys and all of the lives that tech sort of touched and changed. It will be wonderful to just hear one anecdote. So if any of you have some of these interesting things, I would love to be able to hear them. Swanand, if you have, I think if you have something, I would love to sort of start with.
I do actually. So as I briefly said, we're trying to improve the K-12 education in Indonesia. The education culture in Indonesia is a little bit different from India, and not just Indonesia. Everywhere you will see, like, not always parents are super involved with kids' education. Sometimes they're like, yeah, do what you want. And we met during one of our sales meetings. We met one such parent, and they were deeply skeptical about anything like CoLearn or internal education. And when our executive was trying to tell them versions of better education, they're like, "Yeah, who are you? I don't even know CoLearn. Why should I, even talk to you?" And the child suddenly stepped up and said, "Hey, but Dad, I've been using CoLearn for solving my homework problems for the last 8 months, and my math grades have improved because of that." And that was like a light bulb moment for the father, because he had no idea that the grades went up, and he was ready to give up on the child, and that homework help and the rigor that the student was able to persist with, it was like a start of the repair of their relationship, and that has been like a marquee point for all of us. There were many such incidents later, but that was one incident where we, like, all of us, like, remember pretty fondly. And so, yeah, good things happen.
Awesome. I think this is one of the more unsaid thing, designing for the parents and the relationship of the parents with the kid as part of this journey, and just how deeply this affects kids and their parents sort of relationship. It's just wonderful to hear stories about that. Uh, Devesh, I'm pretty sure there's like entire YouTube channels filled with inspiring stories about physics, wala. But I mean, if one or two stories, if you could just recall them.
I mean, PhysicalsWallah have several around that. How we started PhysicalsWallah, the whole concept around if I how EdTech has transformed people's life, right? If it, like you like if you see around, you don't see good institutes around, and luckily if you found it, then it's not affordable, right? It's around 1 lakh or above fees, right? So with PhysicalsWallah, what we have done is to make learning more affordable and accessible, right? So So, like, if we talk about, for example, there are students who got cheated by their local institute. They joined them, they paid their full fees around 1 lakh, 2 lakh, and then the teachers got changed, and so we have several stories around that, like. And then students join like PhysicalsWallah, one of our courses like Yakin batch or Arjuna batch, and like they scored really good marks, and they scored like really good rank. So yes, yeah, I mean EdTech has transformed like people, millions people of life. Yeah.
The amount of cult following that Alak and Physics Wallah's brand follows. I have my cousins, friends, people worshipping. I think what you folks have done. So it's always fantastic to see what you folks have done. Chandresh, very quickly, if you have like a couple of things, and then we'll maybe jump into sources.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll take a different approach towards the change that digital or edtech as a whole has brought in, right? So looking at edtech for the last 2.5 years, there are three different segments we can categorize the impact it has had. The first impact is on the teachers. So very specifically in 2020, when just COVID happened, the amount of job losses that were there were humongous. And edtech platforms like Whitehat Junior, BYJU'S, and whatnot came into picture and were their saviors, wherein they brought in something on the table and an avenue
Right.
to earn something. And apparently I realized it very late in the day that the earnings that the tutors had was massive, even better than their full-time job. So there are lots of teachers who are continuing to teach with Whitehat Junior and BYJU'S because they have a better avenue while staying at home, and they get to elect or become a semi-entrepreneur, right? You get to elect your slots, the time you want to work, without getting penalized and being your own boss. Very big impact on the teachers.
Awesome. I mean, and now, so we've had a ringside view of this. The amount of effort teachers have put into sort of being genuinely good educators for what's been a fairly uncomfortable medium for a lot of them to get used to. It's been fantastic to see, and getting that livelihood, getting those livelihoods up is obviously one of the things that this entire thing is anyway.
Absolutely. And one of the important thing, right? Everyone that you see or any tech company out there, while we are just looking at the tutor, what we are missing at is the army of individuals working to ensure that the curriculum is up to the mark. So we fail to miss out on those basic things on how much effort goes into just creating that content of 60 minutes or 90 minutes to ensure that you are able to communicate particular set of how do I put it in the vague manner? Maybe to give an understanding in the vaguest, not vague, but in a crisp possible way, but in the minimal amount of time
Yeah,
and effort. So that is important. Second thing on the student, right? Like, and I'll just quickly cover up maybe another minute or so.
sure,
Second thing
sure.
on the student. So this is again just between pre-COVID, before we had the Arogya Setu app. In one of our town hall, we had this kid, I forgot his name, who was from a rural area in Tamil Nadu, who created something similar to Arogya Setu to track the number of COVID cases in his village. And
Oh, so cool.
having that kind of a thought and accessibility to someone sitting, to a farmer's son sitting in Tamil Nadu, and creating something like that ensures that you're empowering someone to think beyond your current academics. And
Fantastic.
very recently, we started with something called as Excel classes at BYJU'S with 100K odd registrations. Every episode, you get to learn from the likes of previous Lakshman, Praniti Chopra, Mithali Raj, right? And way beyond your academics engine, right? Like you get to learn about aspirations, sensors in your mobile phone, animations, so that broader view of the entire industry out there, which I'm pretty sure you and me got when we were in 10th, 12th, or after that, is something that is accessible to someone who's in 5th, 6th, and can explore that area. So EdTech as a whole has been a positive influencer. And
Yeah, it's not a stretch to say like what e-commerce did to FMCG, like EdTech is doing to education.
that is so
Even if
true.
not on the same scale yet, I'm pretty sure we'll see that kind of scale pretty soon.
I'm pretty sure, and I personally feel we are in the 2000s or 2001, 2002 era of what e-commerce was right now. And a lot of folks out there are doing good. So BYJU'S gives 4 courses for free for every student who purchases a digital course. And that is something that even I, as a Byjuite, can select and say, I want to give out a course to so and so person. So that impact is very real. And I see we are at least a couple of years away from seeing that realization as the students enter the workforce, and maybe 5 years or so, we'll see a very massive impact with regards to how India, as a developing nation, moves towards a developed nation in next couple of decades or so.
And
Awesome.
to add to that, Aniket, I also have a story, but it's not really around just education. It is about upskilling and monetization your talent. So I was just going through some data, and I realized there's a farmer in Himachal who is an apple grower. He has apple orchards, right? So in last 4 months, he has made more money than selling apples using our platform and selling his courses. How to grow apple, how to do apple farming.
Wow. Simply wow.
So it's not about really just education. It is about upskilling. It is about making India and Indians and people around you earn your living in a way because you are talented, because you have a special talent which you would want to showcase. Only ad monetization is not the way to go about it. There are better ways, and what you build here is a legacy. That course is going to get sold even if you are there or you're not there, right? It's just like creating a content. For example, Lata Mangeshkar ji is not there, but whatever she has sung so far, the royalty is still there, right? So that is what the power of content is, and that is where we are up there.
I think this is the entire sort of movement of pushing monetization of content and expertise into individual creators who are sitting, or individual teachers who are sitting across sort of small corners. And the fact that, I mean, this is a fantastic point, that this is, we're probably looking at a decade long worth of sort of innovation over EdTech as it slowly sort of takes over, as Swanand said, like what e-commerce did to sort of FMCG and digital sort of goods in general. I think that's slowly we will see, and we're just on the cusp of this. Uh, Fantastic. Thanks for this very quickly, recalling all of these things. Now let's just jump into the meat of some of the questions that I think a lot of people here would be interested in understanding. Let's just start off with how do you folks see your organization structured, and what are the different product lines structured, and then what does that mean in terms of, let's say, your org design practices, the tech stack choices that you've taken vis-a-vis, let's say, reusability, cost. It's a very broad question, but the idea is to give everyone who's watching a glimpse into how the product and engineering team of, let's say, BYJU'S, CoLearn, ClassPlus, PhysicalsWallah structured, and some of the tech stack choices uh, that arise from all of your business use cases. I think if Chandresh, if you could just maybe kick off the discussion, I think that'd be wonderful, and then let everybody sort of chime in.
Sure, Aniket. So there are 2 or 3 fundamental questions that you have asked, right? The first thing that you, I think, spoke about is more with regards to how do we organize the entire business as a whole. So as I started with it, right? So for us, we see business being, or when I say business, this particular educational field being a hybrid field overall as we evolve over the next decade or so. So we very well believe that you will have online learning, but offline presence as well. And student would have that avenue to either attend a class physically or learn online in case they want to, right? And when you look at online very specifically, Baiju started very with async content, right? And that was the meat of it, wherein it made a drastic change with regards to how digital learning was powered. And now we are moving towards more of a live learning, wherein you have a tutor teaching into a classroom. And that is how I think a lot of things would evolve. over a period of time. That is very specifically from a field evolution perspective, and that would be in line with a lot of folks who are there on the panel. But as we move and scale towards building something that would be something that is reusable across 18 organizations, the entire thought that you're looking at changes, right? Because from a tech perspective, when you're building for one product line, or say, let's say just live learning, it's easier for you to make those design choices. But the moment you look at building an org that would serve offline, online, hybrid, and whatnot, you start thinking of reusability as a whole. So what we are doing at BYJU'S over a period of time, and as we mature as an organization, is very specifically build horizontal teams. So we are saying what are the reusable aspects of the platform that could be delivered across 8 different organizations as a service. So technically, if you look at me, I'm running a startup inside BYJU'S that powers the live learning and the basic learning for group BYJU'S. Right. So now for me, White Hat Junior, Neo, Topper, Tinker, all of them are customers. So now how do you go about building for them is a question that we are discovering as of now. And one of the most important thing as a developer or as an engineer that you will need to keep an eye on is very first thing, you cannot enforce any restrictions when you are a service. So technically speaking, right, 100 ms, even though they might be giving me some kind of a UI, they cannot enforcing you need to use this particular UI. So how do you create something that is much more adaptable, maybe with a theme engine, is a question that we are trying to solve here. The second thing is reusability. So there are two ways you go about it, and this might be a bit more technical in nature, but there are npm packages that requires deployment every time you want to update or even do a bug fix. Not scalable, not at all. The second thing that we are now working towards and that we have live for almost a year now are micro front ends. So think of a React component that is hosted and served somewhere else and delivers the entire learning or an experience without you writing to or reiterating the entire logic on your app itself. That is one mechanism of working towards it. Aniket, I see you have a question. Yeah.
Yes, I just hold you off on that piece because this is a very deep piece, and I'd love to go into the depth of this. But I'd love to get everybody else's sort of just broad org structures and team structures also in mind. So just for those who don't sort of understand this, BYJU'S is a behemoth. They have Akash, Great Lakes, White Hat Junior, BYJU'S brands, like bunch of organizations which are offline. Then there's some amount of live learning, then some amount of async learning. So when Chandresh talks about 8 different organizations or 18 different organizations, it's trying to define, okay, what will be the, let's say, the live or the async stack for all of these platforms. But all of these platforms have their own twists on how they implement it. But how can we sort of reuse a lot of these things? That's one of the sort of uh, primary drivers of org design or tech stack design, from what I understand from Chandresh, for someone at the scale and the place where BYJU'S is at. Swanand, I think we love to just sort of to contrast how you see your sort of different components of EdTech and how your org has sort of evolved in response to
Yeah, so obviously, like we are much earlier in our journey compared to BYJU'S, and our prime goal is to have a high velocity team. Any early stage startup knows that product market fit is practically a lottery, and you have to have sustained efforts. Ship things out, build things, try. What you think will work may not work, and so you have to have that experimentative nature. And then tying that to EdTech, any EdTech company has primarily two goals. One is student learning outcomes. Students come to your platform, they have to get better at whatever you're offering. Like if you're a STEM platform, then student come to us, they better get at get better at mathematics. So student learning outcomes, and then business growth, obviously, right? Like we're running a business, not non-profit, and so both of them, if you connect these two together, generally you would see early stage edtech companies organize themselves by funnels. And so for us also, we have two core product offerings. One at the top of the funnel, which is designed to offer quick value and using a homework help. And so we have one funnel team focused on top of the funnel, and then we have one team focused on the live operations and live classes. And this allows us to have a pretty sharp focus. Both of them have different goals, different metrics they measure. and then everybody aligns along that, whether it's operations, engineering, product design, all of them. And so we went with a vertical uh, org design, and that also helps the architecture. Among the things, Conway's law famously applies here. If you want your architecture to look in a certain way, you want to set your org that way, and vice versa, right? You'll end up mimicking your team structure into your architecture. And so because of the different needs of different or both the panel teams, so the vertical structure has been serving us pretty well. And just to add, we didn't really design it from ground up from day one. We tried a bunch of things. At the back of the mind, we did have Conway's law and other things to think about, but we stumbled onto these variations just like you stumble onto a product market fit. And so far it's been working well. Like we get that velocity. We're able to run the experiments.
Awesome. So this is in contrast. By the way, anyone who wants to know about Conway's law, address your questions to Swanand. This is the first of the 6 or 7 laws that he'll talk about through the entire session. So keep pinging him the questions. But this is in sharp contrast to what sort of, for example, what Chandresh is saying. Designing orgs for horizontal sort of platforms versus this is a very funnel-based approach. Top of the funnel, these are, let's say, the verticals that we're looking at. The middle of the bottom of the funnel, different teams. But these teams don't have, at least it feels like horizontal platforms. They're running on their own. But that's also a nature of the speed of execution that you have to have at an early stage startup versus a late stage startup, I'm guessing.
And
Manish would
just one quick thing. What ends up happening is in engineering, because engineering is very functional driven, like you have back-end people, front-end people, mobile people, you end up needing some sort of standardization. So what we do is like we create special interest groups, book clubs, etc., to have some horizontal information exchange, like because you want to solve the same problems, you don't want to end up redoing some of the work. And so we generally do that by keeping SIGs and across functions, and then let people talk to each other and create those communication channels. But we don't really do platform teams yet. Perhaps we'll run into that problem pretty soon, but we'll solve it when we do.
I think we'll jump into this one in very specific detail. So, what are the horizontal platform teams you've created versus, like, let's say, BYJU'S created a little later? I would love to sort of dive into this a little more. Manish, I would love to understand like how you folks have organized your team in the innovation.
So we are somewhere in between what Swanand talk about and what Chandresh talk about. One is a very siloized vertical approach, another one is a completely horizontal approach. We are horizontal but still vertical. So which means that we have platforms. By the way, we serve close to 30,000 odd customers, organizations, different coaching institutes for that matter, content creators. The number of content creators is even more, maybe more than 100,000. But at least 30,000 orgs or apps, different apps is what we service. And when I talk about that, it means that we have multiple platforms within our organization, and then we have pods, which means that anything that we need to really execute fast, we need to we need to launch a new feature, we need to do some integration, or we want to enhance experience of a particular user journey. We kind of cut across a pod through platforms, because in the end of the day it's a culmination of 2 or 3 services, 5 services, and that's how we work. And then it gives us enormous velocity, because this pod is nothing but a small scrum, which essentially needs to get the stuff done in next week or two. And people who are working in this scrum, a squad, or whatever you call it, pod, is basically people coming from these platform teams. It gives us multiple benefits. It gives us cross pollination. It gives a better camaraderie. People talk to each other. Complete siloism is not there. So there's a lot positive that also comes out of it. Sometimes where we could do a little better is people who work together in a group, they know what the other person's strengths and weaknesses are, and they kind of uh, tune accordingly. But sometimes when you work with new people, that's where you need a little bit of extra tuning. It actually helps in longer term, because then you have worked actually across with different teams. Uh, and if you are a large team, it actually helps in scaling your systems and even scaling teams and team camaraderie. But for some short tactical losses might be there, but strategically it really helps. So it's basically a matrix kind of structure that we follow: horizontals and verticals, horizontal platforms, vertical pods, and velocity is maintained through the pods execution.
Awesome. So just a follow up very quickly, both Manish and Chandresh. Could you just go into some of the specific horizontal platform teams that you do
Sure,
have that
sure.
will help sort of
So
visualize this?
we have payment as a platform service. We have multimedia live streaming as a platform service. We have video on demand as a platform service. We have chat as a platform service. We have we have Android as an apps is a platform service. iOS as a platform service. QA DevOps as a platform service. So product management as a platform service, design as a platform service. So basically, you kind of build a team, which is kind of a pod, which is a startup within a startup, and they run through complete life cycle of a user journey.
Awesome. Very interesting. Chandresh, for you folks, how does this look?
So we are slightly different here. So what we platformize is the entire user journey. So the class booking is a platform for me. So it spreads across all the 18 organizations. The teacher payout is a platform. Class experience is a platform. So everything that Manish spoke about, live learning, chat, live streaming, anything else is class experience for us. So where the learning happens. Assessment, things that happens after the class is completed is a platform for me. And then we have very specific, as Manish rightly said, right? You need speed of execution. So even we have verticals, but these verticals are based on a particular organization and then are working very specifically with that organization to get things out at scale. So it's more with regards to platform builds something that is scalable across 18 orgs or in different orgs. But
Got it.
using that, you can leverage and change a few things or adapt it in a certain way to get do a quick POC or MVP of a certain piece.
Very interesting. I'd love to sort of go back and figure out when you evolved into this platform structure and how this looked like initially and how this came back. Maybe a little later. I would love to get Devesh's opinion on sort of their team structure first, and then maybe we'll just talk about this piece.
Talking about the PW. So in PW we we structure our content in hybrid way. We are following live and recording content both. But yes, we are pushing a live to the students yes. So what we understand at PhysicalsWallah, so offline, offline coaching is same important as online coaching, right? What we are doing is if we can afford a course, right? So join our offline content, and you
Sure.
can join our offline coaching center. But if you can't afford our offline courses, you can join our live classes, and you get the same level of same quality of coaching and same standardized teacher, like with affordability, right? Because through EdTech we can target masses, but through offline we cannot target masses, right? Talking
Yeah.
about the numbers here, we have 100K to 1 million DAU, daily active users, through
Yeah.
only our PW, through our PW application only, right? And talking about our infra, we are heavily focused, heavily user of means like self, but we have services around build on like Go and Python and Java, and yes, I mean, like on live, talking about the live infra. So we heavily rely on media live services, and which is more of like scalable service. And last month we hit the like benchmark of like 100K student in a single class. So, like, PhysicsWallah scale is little bit of challenge for us. When we are tackling it every day, we are building solution around that. We build up a pod structure around that. Yeah, how how we can improve tech as well as like empowering business product also. So yeah, that's the structure we follow at PhysicsWallah.
Awesome. I think PhysicalsWallah scale just gives so many challenges. I think BYJU'S scale, PhysicalsWallah scale is at such a humongous thing. I think those by themselves throw out a lot of challenges. Just before I jump back into some of the sort of horizontal versus vertical and organizations around that, just very quickly, it'll be helpful for everyone to visualize amongst your, like for your companies, how much portion of, let's say, uh, the usage or revenue, however you want to say, is async versus live versus physical versus any other way offline. I think that will be good to know if you have rough sort of because I think that also changes the perspective about how you do this.
Like talking about like physics for perspective, so we are heavily like we are serving like 80 to 90% of our users so through live only, because we recently got into offline vertical. So yeah, slowly these number will rise and move, but
Got
yeah,
it.
we are heavily into live business.
Awesome. And for you folks, Swanand, Chandresh, Manish, how does this look?
You are
Swanand,
even
you're on mute.
Some
Haha, old nemesis, mute. uh, so our core paid offering is live only. So all our revenue and sales is driven towards getting the students to subscribe to our live packages or academic packages as we call them. And like I said, the top of the funnel acts as gives value and introduces them to CoLearn, and they know that it builds trust. That hey, I this is a platform I use daily and I like it, and then now I'm ready to pay for a different part. Uh, so we are completely focused on the bottom of the funnel for payments.
Got it. Understood. So largely live. I think Devesh is also largely live. Now slowly
Because
moving into offline.
our it's the segmentation is a bit not the percentages are not really true to us because it's a funnel. Your top of the funnel does drive bottom, so you can't really split them in percentages.
Got it. So you're saying the top of the funnel is millions of users who are using some kind of an offline async or some route clearing or some such flight wrap, and that's funneling into the live
Correct.
product. Got it. So in terms of exact usage, even though the other offline the async products might have more usage, the real product is a sort of live is what you're
Correct.
saying. Awesome. And Chandresh, for you folks, it's probably very difficult because I don't know how many companies you have, but it's good to
So yeah, I think there is no certain way right now to give me numbers around digital versus physical. But what I see is it varies based on the organization. So Akash BYJU'S, which was usually physical first, would have majority of its revenue from the physical classes. But White Hat Junior was live learning, and then BYJU'S could be digital, that is async plus live. So it varies based on the organization that we are looking at, and same would be the case with Epic and Tinker. But roughly speaking, majority would be digital, with still a substantial portion, maybe a 20 or a 30% rough estimate, right? No math towards that, coming through the physical classes that I have been out there.
Awesome. And Manish, I think you have the most inside view for the most offline organizations in that way.
Yeah, so basically, our philosophy is a little different. Our philosophy is whatever you are earning generally, we should ensure that you earn more than that, which means you have to, uh, in a way, more than like double the earning for the content creator, which means it has to be more than 50% online. Only then that figure can be matched, right? So, uh, so our fundamental is that you have a X approach. You take this platform, you go live, you build courses, you go you instead of just being a hyper local content creator or a tutor or a upskiller, you become a nationwide entity or even international, if you could, because the app does not have any boundaries. It can be downloaded anywhere, can be accessed from anywhere, can use a credit card swiped in America. If it's an Indian card, if it's an international card, also it can be swiped but charged in INR. So basically, all those things is possible through the app. So what I mean to bring over here is the whole purpose of giving that platform to the content creator is to have more revenue generated online than offline, which the person is doing right now. And the drivers there are multiple. Async learning is also there. Sync learning is also there. Sync to async is also there. Sync to async meaning live class recording. So, for example, if I miss a live class, I can actually do a async learning through the recordings. And not only that, even for people, think of your school time when you used to go for some coaching institutes, maybe for IIT, whatever. If you miss a class, what were you, supposed to do? You need to go to another batch and take that class, and you have to tell the tutor or the institute, "Sir, I missed that class. Please, give me a chance to get into another batch," right? And that was a plead.
Manish, most of
Today,
us just chose never to attend that class back again. We just flunked.
but today you have that pleasure that even once the class is over and when you have time at night before sleeping, you can actually watch that class.
So this is one of the more interesting things that I wanted to bring out today. You would have like looked at all of these organizations. I think what's now becoming amply clear is education is going to be sort of these multiple touch points. And I think Chandresh also talked about this very briefly when we were sort of speaking earlier. Is there's going to be async, there's going to be offline, there's going to be sync, and all of you folks are building businesses across all touch points. I think
Yeah,
this is something. I think that often a lot of people get pigeonholed into sort of these very whitewashed, oh, live doesn't work, or if async content doesn't work. I think if you have the sum of all those things as a flywheel is just so powerful in a tech experience. You have to have multiple touch points, and you have to be able to sort of build across this to have like a truly
absolutely.
value.
So it's the complete value chain that you have to serve for, and think of so there are use cases where a student cannot take live classes because the student is in a tier 2, tier 3 city and doesn't have access to the good broadband. Hence the student waits for the class to get over, right? Goes to a library or a cafe or a where he gets access to the internet, downloads the video, comes back home and watches the video. That's the use
Awesome.
case. How will you solve for it? Like that's how we are solving for India's tier 3 cities. That's how it will be solved.
And
It's always a mix of like offline, online, right? I mean, and it's going to be that way, to be honest. Like 10 years ago, if you had asked a professor to design a custom test or custom syllabus for each of their student, they would have asked you like, get out of my office, right? But now, not only they actually do it, they've gone way beyond that. Like not only custom syllabus, tests and whatnot. Like, and that is just one example of what the hybrid approach has done. But personally speaking, the availability of teachers is, or availability of the right people to teach is the key to education.
yeah,
Uh,
So,
and
so
you can't teach online in that, because not everybody can move to that location. Right? You have to have that availability, and online is the only way to go.
yeah, that problem that Manish mentioned, if you miss one class, then you have to go to another batch. That problem we have tackled through our offline vertical. So in case you miss any of the class in offline, you can attend in our own like PhysicalsWallah application. And the another point that Manish mentioned is very interesting point. Like like for PhysicalsWallah, we are we are serving content to tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? Where user have very limited data. Like, उसके पास 1.5 GB, he only got 1.5 GB in that पैक ही, like उसको entertainment भी consume करना है, उसको उसको content भी consume करना है, and it's very difficult for him to like manage. So data is the biggest challenge, the next big challenge for EdTech. That and we are in a way to trying to solve that problem. Somehow we are able to solve it through providing multi-resolution classes. Like if you don't want to spend much of part of your data pack, you can consume at 240 and 360p, or so yes, data is going to be a very big challenge for EdTech for the next few years.
Building for Bharat.
And by the way, data in India is the cheapest across globe. And even then we are saying 1.5 GB is less per day. I mean, it has a context to it, but yeah, that's very true. What Devesh you are talking about, that's very true. And multi-bitrate definitely is one of the things that we have also done, and it really helps. If you are sitting in a tier 3, you need to, in fact, only audio. Why to give video also, just in case if somebody just want to listen only audio, that should be a possibility as well, on a very less bandwidth consumption scale, if you would like to build something. But yeah, because podcasts work, cuckoo radio works.
That's true, Manish. And I think building for Bharat as a whole is a different conversation we can have, and we can have a different call around it. It would take its own 1.5 2 hours.
Yeah.
But definitely that's an interesting problem a lot of folks are solving. While we might not be able to do it the way YouTube is doing with Google's help and partnering up with ISPs, but definitely folks or partners that we are working with might have a better mechanism of solving for it.
And I guess Aniket is also in the same business who is trying to solve that same problem.
we all have war stories about building for Bharat, and actually, I think this is one of the things that a lot of people don't understand. If you're specifically building for developing markets, a lot of I think the tech part's responsibility in the entire tech piece is just to make sure that reliably everything gets delivered without it sort of coming out as an obstruction. And I think BYJU'S has done a lot of sort of experiments as to how much an increase in, let's say, bandwidth reduction or class completion percentage just changes dramatically if your sort of bottom metrics change. I would love to be able to sort of, if you have any insights on how you folks have actually tackled this. I think Devesh talked about providing multiple bit rates, starting off with 250p, 240p, 360p, so that people are able to download on the things that they want to do. I think it'll be good to surface some of those specific insights, whether it's actual metrics or how you folks have tackled that building for Bharat reliability piece. I think that. Chandresh, if you.
Sure. So while you're building for Bharat, right, like data is one aspect of it, but there are three things that you actually are looking at, right? And it goes for anyone out there, irrespective of EdTech or any platform that you're working on. The first thing is education of the folks that are out there. So how do you create a platform that is understandable by a kid who might be 7-year-old or 12-year-old? He might play PUBG, but you still need to ensure that he understands the mute and unmute button. So building for that plays a very important role. So that is one part that I'll touch on. The second thing is the devices. I might have an iPhone, you might have an iPhone, but we are looking and speaking at a 7,000 or 12,000 odd rupees device with a very limited computational power. So how do you go about it? Right. And the third thing is data.
There are a couple of other interesting patterns on the same thing, not specifically for Bharat. When you say Bharat, I assume you mean emerging economies.
I think your market also.
We have a very curious pattern, usage pattern that is very relevant here. During exam times in Indonesia, or in general, our traffic patterns are like in the morning before school, about 1 hour before school time, we get a massive surge of traffic. And this is because students want to prepare for their homework just before they go to school. And during exam time, this exacerbates. And I'll give an example as well. At around 6:58 a.m. Time, the traffic is very low, say 10 RPM, 15 RPM, barely anything. And by 7:2, 7:3, the traffic is hit 10,000 RPM, 15,000 RPM. We are seeing like a 1,000x spike in a matter of minutes. And in a normal service, as your throughput increases, you want to keep your latencies low so you can serve more. But the system that we use is a data science system, and minimum latency on any of the request response is about 1 second. Which means if you get 100,000 requests, unless you have 100,000 workers, you can't serve them in a span of 1 second. And so then you have to get crafty about how you build your batch processing, uh, warming up your caches, pre-provisioning, etc. So you have to get really crafty with your architecture and with your usage patterns, because you won't see these. And then today, if this is the pattern, someday something else, somebody government declares today, maybe equal to something. And when you have these kind of numbers, these patterns really get ahead of you, and which is where again Indonesia, India, these markets pose a unique challenge that your users are not going to use the app the way you design. You might want them to use it in some way. They're just going to do something else, and you have to be able to support them.
Yeah. Manish, I think you would also have like a lot of war stories from this building for Bharat and designing. How you folks managed to sort of traverse on the network bandwidth limitations that you see?
I think devices is one major thing. Some devices, and because a lot of our focus has been on online teaching, live streaming, noise cancellation, hardware noise cancellation, software noise cancellation. Some devices support it, some devices do not support it. If your autofocus tutor is going with a certain set of devices where autofocus may work on the frontal camera, it may not work on the frontal camera. A lot of these which are very specific, and we are serving millions of students and say X thousand tutors, and those tutors actually get a lot of queries when they are actually on live, because if something is not working, it's our responsibility and it's our duty to ensure that the tutor is having a great experience delivering the class, because tutor should not be thinking about whether the content is getting delivered in the right way or not. On the other side, it's our duty also and responsibility to ensure the consumer experience, which is the consumer of the tutor, which is student, they are getting the right feed. Uh, so all these things actually, and what we discuss about the data consumption patterns, 1.5 gigabyte is what he has on his device to consume, and the person needs to take care of his entertainment needs, PUBG needs, and whatnot. So all those things need to be considered in that uh, you know in that limited bandwidth only, and on top of it, you may get 1.5 gig, but you may not get constant speed. You may get frame drops. You may get buffering issues. On a Wi-Fi network, on a tier one city, in a metro city, you will not get all these problems of frame drops, of buffering issues, which you might get in a tier two, tier three city. So all those issues, when you really go online, surfaces, device, network, data, pretty much like these are the three buckets you need to solve for.
So I think what a lot of people that I think when what we've realized is when a lot of young, and this is from a standpoint of having spoken to a bunch of folks who are in your position, who are CTOs or decision makers at a lot of EdTech companies, when you're entering and trying to design for your stacks, your product roadmap and your feature list, your org design typically centers around a wish list of features that you would want to build. Hey, we want to have offline downloads, we want to have these funky presentation formats, a bunch of these things. What a lot of people don't realize is by the very nature of EdTech, you have these cold start, spiky traffic problems. You have to deal with all device issues because every single kid's device gets accessed in a way that's not accessed in, let's say, an e-commerce app. And then the fact that constant video streaming requires constantly good video, network. How do you deal with buffer drops, frame rates? And how much time is just taken into solving for a lot of those issues and just making sure that everybody gets uh, that standard experience. So for example, this is one of the secret that we always used to say when we were at Hotstar. I think Reliance inadvertently just forced codec and people who sort of modify codec parameters to stuff everything into that 1.5 GB limit. People don't know that Ambanis have effectively innovated on the codec front because everybody in India designs for that 1.5 GB limit. Hotstar's matches do it, Classplus classes do it, White Hat's classroom, everybody comes to us with the same. Oh, 1.5 GB, 1 hour, we have only that much. Please stuff all the clarity in the video within that period. But all of these problems are sort of unsaid, and because it's such an emerging sort of field by itself. All of these are humongous engineering challenges, like cold start spike problems, device problems, and I constantly see all of you folks just having massive teams just working on this piece. Uh, I'd love to be able to sort of take a segue from here into very specifically now that a lot of these problems are difficult, whether it's building just the core infrastructure, etc. How do you approach build versus buy for the teams who are doing the, let's say, even the teams which have the horizontal platforms and not the teams which have the horizontal platforms in both your perspectives? Which pieces do you choose to, okay, this is something that we're trying to build in house, this is something that we'll build in the future, and this we're buying? I think it would be good to know some of the specifics on how you folks have gone about these decisions. I think Devesh, if you could just start us off very broadly, I think what are the pieces where you use tech that's already existing and what are the pieces you're building?
Well, there are multiple factors which affect this decision, build versus buy. So one of the major factor which I personally consider the product that I'm going to build and what are the parts and what are the services I'm going to outsource, like how it will affect my audience, how it will affect my business, right? What will be the business impact if my service goes down, and what the timeline we have, and do we have that such yeah, experience around that, right? So these are the few factors which we really considered when we when we take decision, should we build this service or buy this service. And you will really have to take care about your engineering bandwidth crunch also, solving technical problem, as well as empowering business, then doing some putting some bandwidth in building stuff. So you have to consider all these factors.
So I think specifically, I think Devesh will be very helpful for people to know. I think for your live stack, you have two stacks, right? A lot of the classes are YouTube live, which is again
Yes.
using an existing platform, and then you're also transitioning to your own platform that you're working on as you speak.
So, when we started PhysicalsWallah, we started with a YouTube live, right? So as we grow, we move towards build solution towards media live solution. So we when we operate at this scale, talking about the cold, the cold spike. Last month we got hit around 1 million requests per minute out of 7. It's just a random event, and so we have to handle masses. When we are dealing with such huge traffic, we really careful about the services we are choosing, right? So as I told you, if it's affecting my business, it's affecting my core functionality, then I will go with the buy. Yeah.
Got it. Understood. So buying, I mean, stable infrastructure, if it's affecting core business, trying to stick to that wherever you can buy off the shelf. And
I mean,
longer term.
I don't want to like set up a team of like engineers, 25 engineers who will be working around live stream and जो कि already built हो चुका है, like it's already built by some other people like you. You are building a same platform, and Media Live is providing same. There are services, so like I don't feel कि इसको implement करने की जरूरत है.
Fair. Chandresh, I think it would be interesting to sort of get your take on the process.
So, Aniket, a very interesting question, right? And there is usually not one single right answer to something like this. So, what we do, we have a simple philosophy that we have one mission that we are currently targeting, that is having the best possible impact when it that could be measured in any platform that we are working on. So, it could be grades, it could be fluently playing a particular instrument if you are taking a music course, or understanding the basic concepts of coding for White Hat Junior. So that is the core mission that we are looking at. And as on a technology front, that is what we focus on. Now, the second question that we ask is, what are we? I'm not a streaming company. I'm not a WebRTC company. So we work very closely with partners to work on those fronts while looking at the problems that we're seeing in real life and solving with them. Because there are folks very specifically specialized in that. And then since we have a high impact, or we have a very high dependency on collaboration, that is something that we build in house. But there are things like WebRTC there that are very nascent technologies right now, at least in India, and would take some time to mature over a period of time. We work with partners and solve our problems with them. So there are a couple of partners that we are working with to actually have our entire classroom delivered in 700 MB, not 1.5 GB. You don't get that everybody.
So some new challenges. So for some of the more sort of tougher pieces, streaming slash WebRTC, the live classroom piece, there you'll work with the experts. But sort of some of the more crucial pieces where the technology is a little more mature, let's say interactive applications within the classroom that you're trying to build. So that's good.
Correct. So just to add one thing, right here, one of the most important thing that we need to look at scale is how do you understand the problems that a user is facing. So Manish spoke about a few things. So there is something called as a video freeze rate, very highly spoken about in the WebRTC community. So understanding that simple metrics has a huge impact on the end result. So those are the things that we are usually working on, and we don't want to build them in-house, at least for today.
I have tons to talk about this, but I'll sort of not talk about this. Swanand, Manish, if you could just talk about your build versus buy philosophy.
So again, I don't have a silver bullet answer there. It's like multiple things that we consider. One, definitely, if somebody who is the expert and if that person is solving a problem, that person will be doing a better job than what I am doing. Second, that person will be able to build a better team than what I could. Third, it's always the economy of scales that play here. And, because we are talking about live streaming, we are talking about CDN, we are talking about, infrastructure at scale. We are talking about GPU at scale, transcoding at scale. I can build all that, but then if I am building it for say X, and if somebody is building it for 20X, the cost advantage I can get from 20X is at least 5X better than what I can build.
Yeah.
So that is also one definite reason that I would see from a business standpoint what makes sense for me to build and what doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah, my answer to this was, if you had asked me this question 4 or 5 months ago, my answer was very different. Today, my answer is a little bit different, courtesy what is happening in the world. Honestly, build versus buy, the standard wisdom is that if it's not your core business, you buy it. If it's your core business, you build it, right? But now the new factor is that, hey, what is the cost of buying and what is the cost of building? You only have X months of runway in your bank, right? You don't have unweighted capital. We have pre-revenue, right? Which means we are not profitable yet. We don't have money generating money, which means we have to be very cognizant about how much money we have left in the bank. We have to pay salaries, other important things. And so you have to consider that and then take a look at the build versus buy decision. And so we have started leaning a little bit towards open source, established open source, and accept reduced quality in some spaces, in order to save on the cost, etc. Right, and so that line of thinking has now come up, and we would be going a little more in on this path, learning from like other teams who have done it really well. Like Zerodha, for example, has done a fantastic job in this space. Basecamp originally have done pretty well, and so I definitely see open source software playing a far more important role in the startup world. It's no longer like basically VC money is not freely available anymore. Like, in the crudest of words, money is not free anymore.
Yeah.
It has become difficult to raise capital. That's a fact. Uh, we can't hide from it, and so costing becomes a very very important decision. Right, and for example, our analytics process engine, we are thinking of doing a spike and seeing, hey, can we? It's going to take us X dollars to for the vendor. We're going to pay the vendor X dollars over 2 years. Can we say build it in house and maintain and operate it at say 0.5x, right? Even if it's 0.5x, it is still money saved.
Oh
And so,
wow! Even analytics, that's pretty intense.
right. So, that is the level to which we are willing to go, right? But to add a counterbalance to this, what we are not giving up on is our fundamental infrastructure, which is like AWS. I'm not about to go and go to like get a bunch of Hetzner nodes and build a stack on it. We'll still continue with AWS and all the reliability that come with it. But anything above core infrastructure is open for discussion at the moment, right? It's not a foregone conclusion that, hey, yeah, no question, buy it.
Got
And
it.
that is the line of the thinking that has changed in the last 4 months.
So, Swanand, so then how do you go about building stuff, right? As a startup, what matters is getting the product market fit. So if you
Correct.
start building it in-house, it would take a lot more time for a problem that is already solved. So how do you go about or manage that particular
Which is
part?
where polished and strong open source software plays a part, where you don't have to truly build everything from scratch. You mix and match and put things together. Like you use components from AWS, let's say Kinesis API gateway, to create a stream API that reliably that you push data into the system is going to persist, and you don't have to build a persistent store on your own that is available and good latency, and then you can engage some other stack after that at that point. So you have to get a little bit crafty, go out of your way, and look at things in that perspective. Uh, and again, like what you said, like the cost of building things is not just the time and materials and salaries. It's also the opportunity cost. If my top engineer is going to work on this, then they are not working on something else.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that is truly the decision point, that hey, how many. But there also, what I'm observing is that there's only so many things you can do in parallel. It's not like there are 5 things that are feasible. You can go and you have 5 parallel development streams available. You cannot just go chase all 5 at the same time. There's a lot of conflict, like right from smaller things like git conflict to larger things like competing products and whatnot. And so there's always a soft limit in any startup of how many parallel things you can attack. And so then that is how we're looking at it. Okay, we can maybe do these 2 things at the moment, and so maybe there's someone else who can tackle this other thing.
In
Because sometimes
another 30 seconds, can you help us with some law or framework that you have around it? How do you make those decisions?
one thing is like I learned from finance folks about free cash flow model, and so I tried to do the same thing. You map out the expense over, let's say, for us we are targeting a 30-month burn capital. And so what we are trying to do is how does this cost equation play out over the next 30 months, and at the end of it, how much is left in the bank versus how much you're going to spend, and then parallel number of P zeros you can attack at the same time. So then we try to look at those 2 things. If there are like let's say 3 P zeros that you must tackle, and you only have 3 parallel lines of delivery possible, then obviously you can't afford to not do them. And so then, because of this limitation, this constraint, the onus becomes on business and product teams to really go after a true P0, like identify what is really an opportunity or what is a giant pain to solve. And so we are doing a lot more homework and groundwork on identifying what to work. So in effect, like we've put a price on what engineering and tech vertical will build, because it's a precious and constrained resource. Uh, so that's how we are we are mapping it and taking this in terms of cash flow. Uh, Time will tell whether I'm right or not. Honestly, it's not like I have it all figured out. To be honest.
Got
Uh,
it. I have a few follow-up questions. Maybe if time permits at the end, we can take it as a Q&A.
I think go on that, Chandresh, because this a lot of people will be interested. I think the impact of cost and how do you make sure that your engineer is working on the most highest ROI. I think it's a lot of. Just go on. I think ask a couple of follow-up
So
questions.
the way we are looking at, right, 30 months is like a eternity when it comes to startup. Right. Usually any startup, if you look at, won't survive around more than 18 months. And if they survive around 18 months, the business model that they started with or the assumptions that they had would have changed, if not completely, but with majority of them. So the learnings are something that would come up over a period of time. So how are you tackling that particular effect? And
yeah.
then specifically on the tech front, right? Uh, Building a product that just works in MVP is something that is awesome, right? But there are so many things that you look at. There would be latency, there would be throughput for that particular service, points of failures, visibility, observability, and number of things. So how you are taking all those things into consideration while building something else?
Great question. So the reason we stretched 18 months to say 30 months, one was there was some investor input. Obviously, VCs are incredibly smart people. They have a pulse of the market and they really understand, where
Did I
market.
detect some sarcasm there, Swanand? Okay.
So, uh,
Go on.
there was definitely some investor input, but fundamentally, what we have realized, at least in the Indonesia market, is that education is a sustenance game. You need to be around for a while for people to know that, hey, uh, these people know their stuff, right? No parent is randomly going to pay you money for online classes.
Mm-hmm.
They trust that when they send their child to your, or to your class or to your product, there's actually a benefit. And so in some sense it's also about surviving and sustaining, uh, even if market downturn and whatnot. And so that was one of the thoughts behind that, stretching and seeing how much we can take it. And then secondly, around the tech, like I said, the framework we went with is like how many P0s we can tackle, really. And then doing a much deeper analysis of which metric are we moving, and by how much. Uh, and again, like running a leaner team which runs really fast, it allows you to eliminate more things faster, right? And so that's how we are approaching things now. We are on a path where maybe things are sort of working together, right? But again, like nobody knows how it's all going to turn out. It may just all flip on its head tomorrow. uh, but what we have done is build an agile team which is able to change directions and build whatever we want. And again, our choice of tech stack and everything played into that. We went with whatever is the most comfortable for us, and then that allows us to change as needed.
I think it'll be interesting. I think Chandresh, Manish, I think Devesh, all of get. So this is like because of the cost pressures. There's two ways of looking at this, which is, hey, my engineer needs to be on the most, let's say, the highest ROI project, right? That I can. And there's like two schools of thought that we see. Like Swanand saying, hey, we are now figuring out if we can build a lot of things in house. Maybe if it starts making sense, and we used to rely on open source a lot. I think what I'm sensing from Chandresh is there is so much added cost in terms of observability, HA, and a bunch of things around a lot of these projects. There's obviously no right answer, wrong answer, but I think Chandresh, Manish, it'll be good to like get your opinion, Devesh, like on how you think how these cost pressures are translating into your, let's say, build versus buy decision. So what features you build, for example?
So basically, Aniket, the way I explained earlier also that uh, economy of scale. So if for example, if I have to go contract a CDN for X amount, and you will go and contract CDN for 20X, definitely the cost benefit will be there, and you'll pass that to me. Now, if that benefit is getting passed through you, I am fine, right?
Yeah.
Uh, take another example. So, for example, you know, again, in terms of why I will build something like this, I'm now flipping the side. For example, uh, there is a certain scale at which I have to operate, and there is a certain and for you, I am just one of those, maybe one, not one of those, but maybe the top customer. But even then, you also have 20,000 other customers to take care of, and then you cannot service me for certain reasons, maybe for scale only, right? I have to go deeper and solve that tech issue by myself. And that is when I will get in and say, let's build the stack for myself. So these are two contradictory views, but extreme views. But that is how you probably will take decisions of what to buy versus what to build at times, but as Swanand talked about that, once you are starting, it is always, and while you are building, you can actually take capex into account and say that is a capex, and I will amortize it for next few years. Versus it's an opex. If I'm paying money for a service, it's an opex. But opex cannot be capitalized. So that's again something which, in financial terms, will get back to me as a cost. Uh, Having said that, because startups have a certain runway, and you have to, have to prove that you've got a product market fit, you need to take, certain calls so that you can do an 80-20 rule, which means you spend 20% effort and getting the 80% problem solved, and give it to the customer to get the feedback so that you can iterate on that model again and again. And if you want to do that, right, you need to buy time, and buying actually gives you time in
Yeah.
certain ways.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just to add to what Manish said, right? Technology as a whole is something that is agnostic to the end user. So right now, say for example, the session that we're having, it might be a 100 ms interface, but we don't know who the provider is on the back end, right? And really, as a end user, I might not actually care who is powering it. What matters is whether it works or not, right? And what is the differentiator or my experience around it. So majorly, and I'm going beyond edtech, whenever you're building a product as a whole, it's more with regards to what you're building that helps you stand out from n number of folks out there, and can that become your moat around it. And the initial days as we are in edtech, including BYJU'S for that matter, creating that moat when it comes to learning, smart learning, or things around it would add in a lot more value and could give you ROI, maybe not immediately, right? Not in the next six
Yeah.
months, but over the next 30 months, the way we are looking at. And that is where any startup should focus their engineering bandwidth on. Is I think what again Manish was trying to say. And to maybe, even on the build wala part, there are majority of the things that will still outsource, right? You'll still outsource your servers to someone. And even if you're building, majority of the infra cost is still an operational cost that you're paying them. So why not pay a little bit extra and get the entire service end to end instead of building a part of it and utilizing something that is out there. And if Manish, Aniket does not give you a better rate, someone else will. I'm certain.
He's
Uh,
giving me.
this is uh, this is getting into dangerous territory. But let's just talk about Devesh. I think it will be good to get your opinion on this. What do you folks build? What do you folks buy? And because of costs, I think you guys are probably in your honeymoon period where costs are probably not factoring into anything at this point of time. But it'd be good to know.
Well,
And
we do care about cost, right? But what I believe, so like we just don't follow like blindly tech obsession, right? He if if we need any service and if it's easily available in market, then just go and buy it and start using. Otherwise, then we won't be able to provide courses. Like we are providing courses like we are bootstrap startup, right? we didn't start it with any funding, right? We simply got funded, right? So yes, we from day first we had that point in our mind, right? We have to be cost effective, right? So yes, so what we have understand is being a product centric company, you cannot just blindly follow your tech obsession, but you have to take care about your cost. You have to understand where you can use open source project, like where you have to buy that service. Like if I talk about the one example, like we started the one measuring tool like around our system, like what are the requests we are getting, and like APM service, I would say. Like
Yeah.
monitoring implement. So we thought to just buy that service and start using, and it cost like just like in just say 1 week or 2 weeks, it just cost skyrocket. And then we decided that's not the correct solution. We have to understand like is that really like affecting our business. We have time, we can build it, we have open source solutions, right? So just not blindly follow tech obsession. Just do research around if there's some open source solution around that, if you can build it, right? So yeah, like I mean, just a
So
simple answer.
I'll
Not blindly follow tech obsession. Simple.
Yeah.
Aniket, I'll give you a perspective on that. Every startup that today we talk about either starts in a hyper scaler, right? It doesn't start in a data center. Way back when I started my startup journey in 2008 with Make My Trip, uh, everything started through a data center. You have to purchase hardware, you have to purchase bandwidth, you have to purchase networking, you have to purchase cables. I've gone to data center and plugged in cables to ensure that that setup works, right? uh, Definitely with the data center engineer. But so that were the days, and today infrastructure, no, like I don't think so at day one anybody thinks that I need infrastructure to be built in house first and only then I will launch my website. I mean, you'll definitely just log into AWS, GCP, or
Yeah.
Azure or wherever, and then just launch some VMs or create or if you are doing good, then you'll have Kubernetes or Docker, and you'll run through pipelines and build those pipelines. Automate deployment on day one because you don't have bandwidth, right? So you have to get everything automated. But that were that never happened. 15 years back.
Yeah.
You have to actually go talk to a data center guy and say, I want to put my server here, or he will say, you can't put. I don't have space, but you can purchase server which I have already put into the data center. So you have to purchase the server. It's a capex, or you have to lease the server. You have to say, I will lease it for next 3 years, for example. So those were the models, and we've come a long way in terms of infrastructure. And you know, take my words, technology is never going to be a moat. Technology is going to get commoditized. Data and intelligence is going to be the moat only.
Yep.
Mm. Correct, Manish. When this is like a mic drop statement, but
A
to
little
sort of
harsh statement being a engineer, but that's true.
uh, I think there's like different. I think maybe because of the cost pressures, some teams have started sort of looking at these in different ways. Obviously, I am biased in the build versus buy debate, so I'll keep my opinion out of it. But it's interesting to know, just get like different perspectives. So good to get all of your perspectives on this. I think we're just about to maybe run out of time. I'll just ask one sort of question, and then we'll do some Q and A's from the audience that we've had so far. The one thing that I wanted to ask, and we've gone into a lot of the problems, the cost, the org structures, a lot of the nitty-gritties, but let's just talk about some of the actual delightful product features or products that or the delight that tech's enabled for you in your business lines, in your product lines. I think uh, what are some of, if you, so this question is for, let's say, the PMs or founders within the audience. They're trying to figure out, okay, what, for a lot of them, it's very difficult to imagine what a successful like online education experience looks like. And a lot of us imagine it to be a video that's playing or a Zoom tiles that's it. But there's a lot of nuance and thoughtfulness that all of you, I think, have put into your products. I'd love to be able to, maybe if you could highlight one or two of those things uh, that you're super proud of in your companies that you put to get. Uh, Chandresh, if you have, I think you'll have probably a lot of examples, but if you have a couple of them that you'd be sort of the proudest of.
So yeah, we have done everything from literally using iframes to serve the initial days at Whitehead Junior to launching a rocket in space just a couple of months back. So, and everything in between. But one specific thing that we are very specifically proud of is smart learning. And just to put some insight in there, and as Manish rightly said, it's the intelligence that would differentiate you from everyone out there and nothing else. So what we are building out there, and that is again something that applies across industry, across platforms, is how well you understand your user and how can you customize their experience, in our case their learning experience, based on how they have been learning this far. And what we are doing right now is, say we've got Swanand, Aniket, Devesh, Manish. Someone would be good in algebra, someone in geometry, someone in trigo, right? So how do you actually have a curriculum which is curated specifically for your weak spots? So even though all of you are going through those 48 classes or 300 classes, whatever that could be, but you're learning specific set of things that you're weak at, that adds in a lot of value and brings in that customer delight. So that is something that I'm really proud of when it comes from a very specific feature perspective when you're looking at things. But
Very.
Why not, Chandresh, on that point, why not to build courses where you are good at? Be a bigger star, not a
I'm with you on
round.
that, Manish. Like, I'm much more happy
Find
to
the
speak
use
with you
On the
and figure
lighter
out.
side, I mean, just
Yeah, yeah.
But
I'm curious to know, Chandresh. I mean, is this adaptive learning module or whatever? I mean, however you want it, is this also a horizontal platform or has this been implemented in certain places or certain? How are you guys thinking about this entire?
so
So this
everything that we have built until now was something that was built for a particular organization, and when it scaled well for them, was brought in onto the horizontal. So
got it.
in next couple of months, as we move towards being a public limited company pretty soon, we'll see a lot more vertical integration and this smart learning coming into picture.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Awesome. Swanand, I think if you have like a couple of things that you super proud of.
I lost track of the original question. Maybe
So the question, some product feature or some thing that you've just genuinely enhanced learning student outcomes that you've seen impact in your.
yeah, I think along the lines of what I shared earlier, one attendance feature that we built was in many way the students they could not, when we send them the report that hey, this was your progress, this is what you did, and this was your attendance and you did this much, they share like the power of retrospective, right, in full force. It was a simple thing for the tech team to build, not super
Yeah,
nothing too fancy, but the amount of retrospective power it had, and the amount of love we got from students was
nice.
amazing. Right? They were able to look back, hey, okay, this is what I did. I attended these many classes. This is where I improved. These things happened. Uh, Pretty good. Like you live for these moments.
Awesome. Super cool. Devesh, I think things that you built out.
Here, like PW, nothing fancy, but very simple product like Asked Out. Like
Awesome.
and Asked Out. Like every students are attending live classes. 40, 50,000 are students concurrently, attending live classes, and we are providing like as much as feel like offline. We are, so students feel like they are connected to the teacher, right? So it's a very simple feature. Like the other teacher, if your teacher is teaching some one concept and student got doubt, right? So he cannot ask in chat, right? Already 10,000 students are messaging, spamming around, then he cannot ask that, right? So it's a very simple feature and very unique feature which really work for us. Like you can ask out in live class, and there are teachers sitting around who will answer your doubt. And if 10,000, 5,000 students feel that this is the same that I also feel, they can mark the same doubt. So then the teacher understand that this topic I need to repeat, or I need to personally answer this doubt. So that's the thing really work out for us, like ask live doubt.
I think very few people realize how much obsession you have with this doubt asking feature. And not only can you ask live doubts in the class, there's like actual live doubt sessions where anyone can just ask a doubt, where everybody else is just listening to the doubt and go out. I think
Yeah.
everybody knows doubt clearing has to happen. It's just thoughtfulness and the implementation. It's a separate product line. Like there's a lot of
So,
thought that's gonna do it.
so what's idea behind it to provide a student a more personalized sort of thing, like every student faces some have some doubts around his topics or subjects around his personal life. They need some sort of mentor who can clear their give them clear visibility around life, around their curriculum, around their subject. So recently we also started we launched one product called Sarthi, where student can student can join and ask their mentors around like how should I study, what material should I follow, ask anything. Like it's an open session. Like we are in this meeting. It's same as same, and there will be one mentor sitting, and students can come and ask anything from their mentors, and other students can also hear that. Yeah, so it's also like very good response to it. Yeah.
Awesome. Manish, I think you're probably one layer removed from the end customer in the sense that you're serving probably orgs,
Yeah.
but it'll be good to know. I think some feature that you've built out.
So we actually help like we build a lot of features for the tutors per se, and to make reach outs to make to feel that the personalized feeling you can give. One of the features on the similar lines what Devesh was talking about, we create group chats. So whenever somebody purchases a course, we create a group chat for that. So based on that course, they can ask questions, and when they ask questions, it is a kind of community that is built around it. So, for example, if I have a question, uh, somebody can answer, teacher can answer, and once you get an answer, everybody can actually browse through that. So it's kind of a collaborated learning experience that you can provide on an app. So I think though this was given as a feature for the tutor to manage doubts, but in the end it actually helped the students a lot more, because then it's a community learning that it propels. So that's how one of the features that really helped us. If we have to quote.
Awesome. I don't know how much folks. I'd like to sort of jump off scheduled questions and then maybe take 3 or 4 sort of audience questions if you folks have some time. Maybe we
Absolutely.
can.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think this one comes up often, but just an early stage CTO. So this is the question: being a CTO of a startup, I face a lot of issues in building things, as the initial journey is the most sort of difficult one. How have you faced and resolved technical challenges during the initial phase? I think broadly, if you're very lean CTO, very lean team, then how do you build with small team or even with no tech team at all? How do you do that? So one co-founder person who's just working, being the tech person, how should that person prioritize their work streams? Anyone has any thoughts on this?
Get to a stack which has most open source community available. You know, get libraries around it, and build stack around that. So probably that's what I would approach this problem. That's how I will approach this problem. Others
Awesome.
can pitch in.
Yeah,
Devesh, you probably
mentor.
short
Like,
answer is Ruby on Rails. Long answer, it depends on many things. Uh, Devesh, go ahead. You're about to say.
I'm a member of PhysicalsWallah engineering team. So I joined PhysicalsWallah at very early stage, like when we were deciding what technologies and we should use. So there were 2 points coming in my mind. The choose a tech stack as Manish mentioned कि आपको कितना community support मिल सकता है, right? And the developers availability, right? At very lower cost. At that time, and still means like it's very famous and developers were very cheap and very community was very good. So my idea was here let's choose this so that we can we can easily build system and tackle technical issues.
Although, what I want to ask is, was the question more around capacity or capability, because that changes the approach typically.
I think it's probably a little more about capability. I think assuming that the capacity is just very limited, then what do I do?
Yeah. I mean, maybe we can go into this a little more detail, because again, like my standard answer is do leverage consultants even if it's for a shorter period of time, because capability is hard to build in a short span. You can build capacity, do something, but you can't just build capability out of the air. And so that is where consultants and specialists are super helpful.
Yeah, got it.
I suppose
by the way,
getting a good
Swanand-
mentor
sorry,
is
go on.
So for me personally, if you look at any young CTO, right, it should be get a good mentor, someone has already done, you can speak to. Nothing can beat on that particular aspect. And as an engineer, build something that would bring in revenue. So if you're really young, it's not about how many features you have, but 2 features that a user is willing to pay for and reiterate over it. So you get to some level of sustainability and a product market.
Awesome. There's a couple of questions on scaling. Recently, PhysicalsWallah achieved some 1 lakh concurrent viewers in a live class. So someone's asking, Devesh, how did you do this? How did you scale your servers? I can ask the same thing to Devesh also.
So it's not a single day job. We were already preparing for all that. We started this journey from 0 users. Now we are sitting handling a traffic of millions of 800K of DAU. So it's not like we हमने रातों रात इतना बड़ा infra create कर दिया. It requires more effort toward to build your infra, your architect, set up an architecture in a way so that you can handle such huge traffic. When you're handling 100K concurrent users, so the traffic is you have to scale your other systems, right? Then yes, you have to set up your infra in such a way to tackle, and you have to do lots of performance testing, load testing around that, so that your system should be able to handle such huge traffic. And use a auto scalable solution. So in case you get certain scale, your infra should be auto scalable.
If you folks want, we'll get Devesh back for just a talk on architecting for 1 lakh concurrent users, or just a very shameless plug. If you want, there's a bunch of Hotstars folks within the company who will talk about how we did this. But it's a very interesting problem, I think in general, scaling these things. Just very quickly, I think this is a very specific direct question. Maybe I'll answer for everyone. Actually, I'll just let. Do you guys use third-party libraries for online classes like 100ms or someone else, or would you use it from your own library, and how are you guys scaling it? I don't know if you folks want to, maybe not, okay. For the live sync portion, are you folks using sort of your in-house solutions or bought out vendors? I think that will be good to know for everyone if you guys are comfortable with that.
Yeah, obviously, at the moment we are on Zoom, which is the undisputed king of live video. But and again, like we have had multiple conversations, we're evaluating platforms like 100ms, because at some point you run into that limitation of every platform, and you must go to a customizable solution, right? And the good thing is, the sooner you reach that problem, the better for your business. So we are in that great territory right now. and we will be evaluating everybody and like doing time. But yeah, like I said, for now we're on Zoom and then looking at options.
Awesome. Manish, Chandresh, Devesh, how are you folks doing this? Very live
So
pieces.
for live classes, we work with a partner and we work with that partner like an extended team, and the journey is together.
If you can't figure that out from our smiles, let's, go on. So Manish is on a partnership basis. Chandresh, you folks?
Yeah, we have multiple partners we are working with who usually power the very specific
Live.
use cases of technology.
Awesome. Devesh, how are you folks doing the live class?
We also have multiple partners for that. So one of the partners I'd like to mention, like we are really like for live we are using Media Live, and it's really scalable solution, and it's working for us. Like we are also using some services for like as I mentioned, Sarthi, we are using 100 ms also. So yeah, it's going good.
Yeah. See,
Awesome.
on the little bit. Sorry, Aniket, go ahead.
Go on. Yes.
I was saying on the nerdy side of things, as BASM matures, we would see products mature very heavily, because how like the power that a codec brings, if you're able to like run codecs on browsers and users machines, that is the next level. And I would love to see BASM taking a more nuanced role, a more prominent role. And maybe Aniket, if your team can do like a talk or something on that, on how you are planning to use, that'll be amazing. That is one area of hot interest for myself personally.
I think WASM is super exciting. We dabbled in it for a little bit. I think what we figured out is, so we have an experiment. I think this is a long topic in general, but WASM is super exciting in general. I think the power that it gives the browser is so much. I think there's a lot to be done there. But I think one of the interesting points about this very specific niche piece is a lot of companies have the journey that Swanand's talking about. You start off with a Zoom or some kind of pre-built solution, then you move to a customizable solution. I think BYJU'S / Whitehead Julian have gone through that phase. Swanand's going through that phase. But at some point of time, you sort of move to either a bought-out stack or in some sort of niche use cases, your own sort of open source stack. But that's a journey. I think initially most people use some kind of a pre-built solution and then transition to some kind of a customized solution. All right, that's it. We have one question that's. I think that I don't want to take too much of your time. This has been wonderful. There are some things that I haven't sort of managed to unfortunately touch upon. I think Chandresh has this beautiful talk about building out sort of repeatable micro front ends and plugin engines and template engines, how to reuse a core stack across multiple orgs. Whoever wants to do that, hit Chandresh up, his Twitter handle. We'll try and send out over email. Just hit him up. And anyone who hasn't already followed Swanand on Tech to Twitter and isn't on his manifesto of why Ruby on Rails is the greatest thing ever, follow him on Twitter somewhere, or one of the 20 laws that he follows while designing orgs. He keeps tweeting about those things. We'll talk about those things. But it's been wonderful having all of you folks here. This has been. I think a lot of the things that we just talked about are sort of obvious truths for us, which is for horizontal platforms versus vertical. Initial days, how do you do that? Later days, how do you do that? Or how do cost pressures translate into actually buying or building on open source? I think it's just great that you folks could actually hash it out and talk about this. Thank you so much for coming over. This has been a pleasure. And if you folks like, whoever's listening, if you folks want more of this or have follow-up questions, we'll send you the Twitter handles or something, some contact details of all of these folks. Feel free to reach out to them. I'm saying that on all of your behalf. I hope I'm not going to get you spammed. But and we'll be continuing these roundtables. I think this was the first one. We will pick another vertical and we'll try and go behind this after this. Whoever wants to stick around for those, do stick around on our do follow us on our Twitter handle. We'll be putting more of these. Anything, Manish, Swanand, Chandresh, Devesh, any closing remarks, anything that you would want to talk about?
So Aniket, congrats and thanks a lot for hosting this up. There is a lot that is there to tech and EdTech in general. So I think you need to come up with maybe second, third, fourth sequel for this and dive deeper onto each of the aspects.
I think there's so many things that we've talked about that we didn't touch upon. I think maybe I think there's a follow-up required.
Yeah.
But thanks all for coming over. Thank you so much for sharing everything. I think especially in this hullabaloo, a lot of the beauty of what all of you folks are building gets just lost out. I just wanted to shine some light on like some very fantastic work that all of you folks are doing. The engineering challenges are humongous. Then there's cost pressures, and then within this, how do you delight and actually do life-changing outcomes? Not a lot of companies do life-changing outcomes, and all of you have sort of managing to sort of walk that tightrope spectacularly. So just wanted to bring all of that out. Thank you so much for joining, and hopefully, if you do a part 2, we'll probably call you over again. That's it.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Bye bye. Bye.
Bye.